Hello, everyone. This is Jetpack Swords, our super duper cool podcast that now has a name. We're a casual podcast where we talk about games, gaming, and whatever else catches our attention. And I'm Greg, and with me, as always, I got Packy and James to join me. And today I don't really know what we're gonna talk about. Do you guys got anything? I mean, that's not true. If you guys don't have anything you want to talk about, I got some stuff we can talk about.
Yeah.
I don't have anything off the top of my head really.
Nothing burning. There was no real big gaming news from what I could tell this week either.
Well, so recently the internet is blowing up on Overwatch 2 and everything they're doing, and I find it really amusing.
In a good way, right?
Which,
That's what you mean. Like they're really excited.
Yeah, they're really excited. Have you all seen this? Like any of the stuff
No.
about like Overwatch 2?
I've seen a little bit, but I haven't been following it. I was never like a huge fan of the first game, so.
I mean, I never bought the first game, but I would play it whenever they had a free to play weekend. And so obviously I'm kind of pleased that it's just going to be free to play because then I can just play it. Right. Because it was like, I always enjoyed it, but it was never like good enough for me to justify buying it over like playing Paladins or something like that. Which Paladins is like Hi-Res's, equivalent hero shooter. Anyways, so yeah, background obviously is Overwatch 2 is going free to play, which Overwatch 2 is legitimately just Overwatch 1 Plus Edition free to play with a paid campaign. That's all it is. It's fucking Overwatch 1 Plus Edition. But so because they're going free to play, they're like doing these things to prevent abuse, and people are really upset with it. And some of it, I don't know, I just think people are ridiculous because like I honestly think they're mostly good changes. Like I think the big ones that people are really upset by are to play the game, you have to verify your account with a phone number. And that one I literally care nothing about personally because I mean they already have my phone number. And like even if they didn't, I guarantee you they could go buy your phone number from someone else if they really, really cared. Right? Like people are like, they don't need, I mean, like, dude, they got it if they want it. Like, so I don't know. I feel like that was just a good one because like every free to play game has the Smurf problem, right? Like it's not even just Smurfs, right? Like in League of Legends and Smurfs, it's Smurfs. In Warzone, it's hackers or cheaters, right? Like, and so I feel like it's good to have some of these like requirements to like kind of help prevent abuse, like because it's going free to play, because otherwise you just make a new account. Like you get banned. Okay, I'm just going to make a new account and go be abusive again and go be toxic again, right? And so like doing, having a phone number verification to, prevent that is fine by me, combined with like, I think you have to play 100 games to unlock all of the base heroes or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, no, the phone number thing was like what most people were freaking out about, combined with this one I'm a little less okay with. I mean, I'm not like super opposed to it, but they are going to, for a very short period of time, and they didn't say what that short period of time is, keep the recordings of voice chat in the game. And so, yeah, I know, right? That face. It's like,
It's
why?
just weird.
So,
I mean,
so
it's
the
not. I
reason
guess
they're
it's
doing
for
it,
toxicity, right?
it's exactly that, right? It's if you report someone. And so here's the other thing is like people aren't even listening to the recordings, right? If you report someone, the system's going to find the recording from that game. It's going to transcribe it through some generic speech to text thingy. And then they're going to read the transcript to basically like verify the report.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, and they were very explicit about like, these aren't kept very long. And so like, if you're gonna report someone, you need to do it right away because like we're gonna delete the recording very shortly, right? It's a very short window of time to report someone and have like the transcription made. And so like, I don't know, it's one of those things where like because I work at a company where like we take data privacy extremely seriously, like I don't know, I feel like a lot of people get tinfoil hatty, and it's like these people aren't listening to your conversations and stuff like this, right? Like it's I don't know. These systems are normally that's the catch is normally, and to be fair, who knows if Activision Blizzard did all of these things, right? But like they're normally really well designed to like, protect customer data and make it so like, Joe Schmo employee can't can't listen to it or read it or whatever unless there's some like reason to cause that. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting because like it is. I feel like it's every other article I see has been about like,
But
oh, look at
that's
all these terrible things Overwatch 2 is doing.
the audio logs thing. That's conceptually identical to keeping chat logs, which tons and tons of people do, and Blizzard particularly has been doing since the dawn of time.
I
Like
agree.
it's just keeping
It's
internal communications. It's just now audio, which is like I guess it really does feel like a step up, but it's actually not.
I think maybe where it's a step up is so like chat logs are an explicit thing. And so maybe the answer here is turn on push to talk. Maybe that's the answer here,
Hmm.
right? Like with a chat, you have to explicitly hit enter, type out your thing. Whereas with a voice chat, especially if you're going off voice activity, right, it's going to pick up background things, like I don't, stuff like that, right? That maybe wasn't an explicit thing, but yeah, turn on push to
That
talk,
is
right?
incredibly
Like
tinfoil hatty. That is
I,
extremely
I,
paranoid.
I know, and people are like really freaking out about it, and I don't know. I don't think it's actually that insane. Particularly, I mean, like based on what they've said, they're keeping these recordings for a very short period of time, like way less than like your Google Home or your like Amazon Alexa or like is gonna keep these recordings, and so I don't know. I feel like as long as they built those systems to actually protect customer data, right? Then like, which I'm sure they did, then I think I'm mostly okay with it, right? Like if it actually truly helps prevent, standard free to play toxicity, which exists everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it's so bad. And so like if some of these things can like prevent people from making new accounts so that like a ban means something, right? Like is essentially what they want to achieve. And so I don't know, I think it'll be interesting.
It's also probably a response to the problems that Valorant has had. Because I've heard Valorant, because it's mainly through audio chat, like the toxicity problem is massive because of verification problems.
Well, so apparently Valorant said they said the same thing. They said they were going to keep recordings of chat, of in-game voice chat.
Hmm.
And I can't remember if they ended up rolling it back because of outrage, which it got the same level of like, this is really creepy. Why are you recording the chat? And I love what you said about like, they are keeping these chat logs anyways. Really, how is it different than them keeping the voice chat as opposed to the text chat? I actually love that comment and that perspective, Packy. I think
I have
it's
to imagine somebody's brought that up. Like it I don't know. It's just such a clear connection to me. Like it's just all like internal
I
team
don't think
communication.
so because a lot of the times where or at least, okay, so I'm sure someone at the company that's doing this has brought this up of like, yeah, this is just an extension of what we're already doing, right?
Hmm.
But then like, when these things start to go, it's the internet, right? The internet just becomes this snowball echo chamber of garbage,
Hmm.
right? Like, social media is just,
I just figured like that
it's
one
social
thought can
media.
all fit into a tweet, so I figured at some point it would have hit the mainstream, but maybe not.
Yeah, but then that tweet's not going to pick up. It's not going to get the traction that because it's not the thing that matches the
The narrative.
the narrative. Yeah, that's
Also, that brings up the point like there being equal outrage. I bet there are people in both of these cases who played neither games who are just like making
oh,
a stink just because.
100%. Yeah. And I bet so many of the people saying like, "Oh, this is terrible. I'm never going to play this game." It's like you weren't going to play the game anyway, dude. But okay,
Hmm.
like,
And they're
I
both
mean, I do
free.
love. Yes. So I don't know. I just all of this Overwatch 2 stuff has just been kind of amusing because I personally don't care super. In fact, actually, I either don't care or I'm in favor of it. Like we've said, because I do think like toxicity and cheating is a problem, and it's in free to play games in particular, right? And so if this can help prevent that, I'm actually genuinely in favor of it, or I just don't care because it doesn't really affect me, which like is not a great way to think about it. But I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. And so I'm excited for Overwatch 2 and seeing all these stories is just funny. But beyond that, the other stuff that actually I did see recently, which I thought was kind of interesting, which Packy, I think I mentioned this to you briefly the other day, is James, did you see the story that, I'm forgetting his name. Is it James Earl Jones? voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah,
Is that his name?
Yeah.
who that is, yeah.
Okay. He's no longer the voice of Darth Vader. Or let me rephrase that. Disney's super fancy ML generated James Earl Jones voice is the voice of Darth Vader from now on, which I think is very interesting. Um, Mainly, I think it's interesting that combined with, Disney's doing this, right? They can clearly take a voice and then generate it. And so this story came out about the same time as there is a rumor that Ninja Theory, who are the people that make Hellblade notably, at least recently notably, were using a similar thing, right? Like AI, quote unquote. I hate AI. It's not, it's ML. It's some very fancy statistical regression analysis thing to generate a voice, and people got really concerned that they were doing this in place of hiring real voice actors, right? They were like, oh, you're just trying to save money and not pay voice actors what they're worth, right? And it came out, they said they're not replacing voice actors, they were just using it for basically prototypes, right? So like when they're working on the game and they haven't bothered to record the voice lines yet, they just like generated, this AI ML thing, voice instead to just like test the game with. And I actually thought that was super cool. Like,
we were talking about
that is
it.
a great use of it.
So the more I think about it, the more both of those things can be true. They can be using it in the prototype phase because it's just not good enough yet, and they're still working on it, and it'll eventually be used.
Yeah. So the extension of that is, I 100% believe that is going to be a thing in like the probably not too distant future. Like, I fully expect to see games with completely AIML generated content, right? Like, whether that be what Disney is doing with Darth Vader, where they're basing it off an existing thing, or like you could call it a deep fake, right? Like whether it be a deep fake thing or whether it just be something completely brand new, quote unquote. I totally expect to see more of it happen. Yeah, not just in development, but in actual shipped games.
I
Also
do think
because
we'll
like
see way more of like the reason we're seeing the James Earl Jones situation, well, I think we'll see that for a while before we start to see anything resembling like a new unique AI or ML generated voice. Is because like you kind of need a human voice to create the character. I think it's hard to create characters out
yeah,
of thin air, and then they'll use that template of all the lines you've recorded to make something new, which I think
that
will be
makes
really
sense. I
good.
mean, which is similar to with like how the AI generated art works, right? Like they basically trained it off of like all of these themes or existing artists, right? And so
Hmm.
they create art basically in the style of something, right? So you could have an AI voice line in a game that's in the style of, some famous voice actor or whatever, which obviously then it gets into the question of like, oh shit, they better be signing off on that because otherwise, the first company that does it without like the permission is called, they're going to get sued into oblivion,
It's just going to be
right? Like,
the new wave of actors that'll start to become standard in new contracts is what'll be the case. So they'll have trouble and they'll have to pay a big premium to get existing people. But as time moves forward, and now they know that's going to be a tool available to them, they'll just bake it right in.
Hmm.
well, and that's the other thing. You talk about tools. This is going to be built into Unreal
Oh,
Engine.
for sure.
Epic is
Mm.
going to do this, or Unity, or well, probably Epic or Unity. They are going to have a tool in Unreal Engine or Unity that is literally, we will generate your voice lines for you, or we will generate, some other thing for you, right? Like if I recall, like this premise of like, well, that's actually the example I was going to give was actually much simpler and probably didn't require any sort of ML at all. But like the blades of grass in Warzone matches are different for every person because they're not part of the map. They're generated on the fly using just like probably very standard, like old school Minecraft, you know, uh, procedural generation. I couldn't think of the word, right? Of just like, because why waste time doing the grass, right? Like just come up with an algorithm to place grass on the ground or, stuff that the character doesn't interact with, right? Like if it doesn't have physics, like just generate that on the fly. Or, I mean, generate it once, but like with something, like it could save, artists, a ton of time creating a
Hmm.
level if you can basically just say like, this is what I want, and then it does it, and then maybe the artist goes in and fixes it up afterwards. I mean, what other cases could you see for like, this AI generated content in games or in game development?
I think, well, at least for the voice part, I could see them. Obviously, the long-term implication is they will use it for everything, like understandably. I think beyond just using it for like prototype stuff, I could see them using it for like shoring up like audio recordings from like actual actors. So like if a recording wasn't maybe great, or if it was okay, and then their contract with the actor was over and they didn't want to pull them back in,
Yeah,
they
and
could
maybe you just
shore
cut
up
out
that
a couple
content.
lines.
Or let's say for whatever reason the direction of the scene changes and they need to adjust the emotional tone or whatever.
You go into your UI and you drag the sad scaler all the way to the top, and you
Exactly.
rerun the generation, and right, and yeah,
I mean, I could see something like that for sure, on something that's not as nefarious possibly as just doing the full thing. And I think too is on its own, it does not have to be nefarious. It could be a tool that's fantastic for indie developers who don't have the resources to hire out big name actors.
Exactly. That's why I love it.
There definitely is the potential, like any tool, any development, anything you use that's for like creation, it can always be used for the wrong reasons, but that doesn't mean that on its own it's something negative. So I think it definitely has its uses.
Oh, I think it's going to be pretty harmless.
Indie developers, I love it. That's why it's going to go in the engines. That's why Epic or Unity is going to do it.
I think it's a great
so indie
toolkit.
devs can use it. Yeah. Anyways, Packy, you were saying I cut you off.
No, my vision for this is, I think, much more similar to like it's going to be another set of. I picture like they're going to have 4 stock AI male voices and 4 like stock female voices, and it's going to be you can pick from this very limited language set and write out scripts that they will read in an AI generated voice. That because they will have a select few of them and they will be stock, just like stock assets that you notice in different games that are like they're gonna become so commonplace. Everyone's gonna immediately it's gonna be this fucking guy. Like you're gonna instantly know who it is, and it'll kind of like cheapen your game a little bit. It'll be very usable. It'll be good for filling in like background characters, stuff like that. But ultimately, I think its value won't be that
characters. Big. Well, and so here's the other thing is, I'm talking about this is like, oh, this exists today, and it does exist today, right? You go into Siri or whatever on your phone and you change the voice, and like those are fucking, ML generated or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the difference though is then you look at what Disney is doing, and what Disney is doing is on a whole other like level than what Apple's doing with like the Siri voice or Amazon's doing with the Alexa voice, right? Like it is a whole other level. And I'm going to go ahead and wager it's probably really fucking expensive. Like I bet it is inordinately expensive, like way more than people think, particularly today, right now, to actually generate those things, right? Like, and my background is not in machine learning or artificial intelligence or anything of that. But what I do know is like a lot of these things, they basically end up running. So the training of it is incredibly expensive, right? Like in general. And then B, even the operation itself is so like I was playing around with AI generated art to get art for our podcast logo, right? And like, it was like, yeah, how many thousands of times do you want to run this? Right, like to get, and it's still garbage is the output, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like I bet it is. I'm sure it is cheaper than a voice actor. I'm sure it is cheaper than a very, very good voice actor, right? Like for sure.
The AI generated voice. I bet it is.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is.
Not what they're doing. I bet what they're doing is more expensive.
I bet
it's laying the groundwork for what they will do in the future. I think it'll like become cheaper once they've created and established the use of this technology.
Cost will go down, right? Yeah, cost will go down, and it'll get to the point where like, like I said, Epic will do something and you can run it on your own machine and it'll generate instead of like running it in the cloud or whatever, right? But no, I bet it is cheaper to get. I bet it is cheaper for Disney to record, quote unquote, 5 Darth Vader lines than it is to get Troy Baker or Nolan North to record 5 lines.
Oh, but the difference is their voice will be different, right? Like this is the most iconic voice for the most iconic villain in like the 7th most profitable multimedia franchise in the world. I'm
Yes,
sure
that's
if
very
voice
true.
actor was like more true to it and had better quality, that's what they would be doing. Like I think they're doing this because it's going to be more similar and scale to what they're trying to do. And like they're willing to
Yeah.
pay a
And
massive
again, like
premium to do it.
Disney is in a league above here, right? Like
Yeah.
I
There's a
haven't
reason no one
seen
else is doing
anyone
this.
else. I mean, other people are doing it, right? I mean, you can go find deep fakes of like Tom Cruise or whatever on the internet, right? And they're very good. They're very, very good,
Yeah, they're scarily
right?
good.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, what Disney is doing is still like just as good as that, but better, right? Like I mean, both in terms of the visuals and the audio. I can't actually. They've used the AI voice a couple times already. I want to say on Carrie Fisher, maybe. Can't remember.
Yes. Yeah, the AI imagery and stuff like that. They definitely did for Carrie Fisher.
So they've done AI imagery for Mark Hamill in
They
Mandalorian.
definitely had to do it for Tarkin too, because
Tarkin, yeah,
he's
Tarkin
not
and
around anymore.
yeah. And so I mean they've been doing especially the picture for a while. I don't know if they've been doing the voice for as long, but I mean they've definitely done it in a couple, release shows or movies already, and it's very good. And so I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting to see how that comes to games because I think James, like you said, I think you're right. If this becomes more accessible, like if we get to the point where Epic is including this as part of Unreal Engine, then yeah, I could see indie developers doing like it's not necessarily going to make it so that they can create infinitely better games or whatever, right? But it's something that like, do you know how many indie games don't have voice lines? They just have text
It's
chat.
a lot.
Yeah, it's literally just text chat. You just click through it, right? And like I
The
can
Animal
see
Crossing
if
noises,
this
the
gets
Yeah,
whenever
exactly.
people are talking.
yeah, exactly, right? And so I could see this, cutting down on some of those and like actually giving life to some of those, characters in the future, which I think could be really cool. I actually think I have another like thing that I think would be really interesting to see is like, and this is kind of just an extension of like dungeon crawlers and the way they procedurally generate stuff and the way Minecraft procedurally generates stuff. But so what if you take something like Halo Forge, for example, right? And you basically describe what you want your map to look like, and it does it for you. And I'm not saying that you would then play on that map, but then you would describe it, you would have some model that generates your map for you, and then you'd go in and you'd put the finishing touches on it.
Well,
Yeah, just like
we've
everything
kind
else
of
that's
have
AI
had
generated.
that for a similar way for a long time, where if you play like, I mean, I think of a specific example specifically that's related to what you're talking about with like Far Cry 2. I mentioned the last episode, the episode before, where I said that I tried making maps in it when I was younger, and it had
Yeah.
a system where when you loaded in, it was a blank featureless square map, and you could put in like there was like sliders or whatever for how much water you wanted on the map. And that's not exactly machine learning or like necessarily procedural generation, because I'm sure it's this number on this slider equals this amount, like percentage of water, right? But like
Yeah.
it's still a similar idea where you would put in parameters, the system that the system provides, and it would change
Exactly.
the physical characteristic, and then you would finish it out by putting in the structures or whatever. I mean, strategy
And I
games have
think
that for
this
their
is
maps
just
too,
yeah, I think this is just the next evolution of that, right?
for
Like I think
sure.
it's exactly what you're talking about. Like you just get more things, and instead of just like the developers having to go in and program those explicitly, right? In terms of like, oh, X water means this, right? Instead, it'll just be they train some model on like a tower in a map is this, and these are all the ways you can build a tower in Forge.
Yeah.
Right. And so then, like, instead of saying, oh, I want, a certain amount of water on my map, you say, oh, I want two towers across from each other with 3 lanes down the middle. And I want there to be, power ups scattered evenly throughout the map. And then it does that entire thing
I think,
for you, right?
yeah, like having it be generation based on verbal prompts, the way that the AI generated art, like, things are machine learning generated art in your case, are like when you look at like Midjourney or the DALL-E one, like you give it a sentence or a word, it's not
Yeah,
you're doing
exactly.
sliders. I think that would be super interesting. I don't know if it'll ever get to that point, but
yeah, we're so far from there. That is the dream goal of like every new Silicon Valley startup is like what do they call it? Intent aware, whatever, right? The idea
Hmm.
is the program understands your intent and then it makes it happen, right? And yeah, we're pretty far from there, right? I just think I think that that there's still that potential, right? Like I would love to be able to again, the maps are going to look like garbage. They're going to be
Hey,
terrible.
my maps look like garbage and they were handmade, so
Exactly. That's the thing, right? And so if it just saves you like A for if your map's going to look like garbage anyways, if it just saves you the entire time, then okay, cool, right? But like if it saves you, like, in software we call it essentially boilerplate is what we call
Mhm.
it a lot of times. It's just like stuff that you have to put everywhere and it's just like, oh, I got to put this thing down, like and to be fair, like Halo's already been doing this, right? Like they have prefabs, right? And so, like,
Mhm.
you don't have as much boilerplate because you save it in a prefab and you bring in the prefab, right? And so, like, this would be even cooler on top of that if it can just save you like 6 hours of work building your skeleton, right? Like, it's not going to build your map; it's going to build your skeleton of your map or whatever, and then you can polish it from there. And I just think it'd be super cool. I don't know.
what
I think there's so much potential for this type of technology in games.
For sure. What I would want it to do is instead of building the physical layout of the map, which is like stuff that I like to do, my least favorite thing to do in Far Cry and then also Forge and Reach was putting down the spawn points for weapons, power ups, the players. It was so obnoxious to do. And as someone who tried to make balanced maps, like it's sometimes hard to do that, where you want to have a balance, especially when you're not making a physically symmetrical map or whatever. Like it's a pain in the ass, and I would love for if they could do that. If I could like have a map generator like Forge, I can make the map and then I can click a button and it puts down a rough approximation of what it thinks,
Yeah, based
good
on
spawns and
maps with
stuff.
this layout, yeah, with this
Exactly.
layout, this thing, like, it seems like these spots would be good,
Hmm.
whatever. And then the interesting thing is like, and I'm pretty sure, I wish I made games. It would be fun. I mean, I don't because they're, notoriously underpaid. Like game developers
And
are
work
notoriously
so much.
underpaid.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I probably work less and get paid more than most game developers,
I
and
probably
which is
do
so
too.
sad. They should get paid more. Uh, that's anyways. Rip, pour one out to our homies who make these great games that we love and don't get appreciated as much. Not only that, they're overworked, underpaid, and then abused online
Oh
by
god, by the
toxic people.
communities.
Like
All of the communities.
I just I feel so sorry for these people. Like they're people like me who probably could have gotten a job somewhere else, but they chose to do this because yeah, they're passionate about it and they love it. Anyways, I wish I knew more about this because what I imagine a lot of these people are doing now, right? Like, Halo Infinite has bots right now, and so you can play test your Forge map with bots. And you know what else I bet they could do is if the AI or whatever, quote unquote, behind the bots gets good enough, then taking your spawn point example, James, is so you could use some pre-trained thing, run it once, and basically say this is a good estimating point, right? And then you extrapolate on that, and then you basically run it 1,000 times, and you
Hmm.
tweak the spawn locations, right? And then you just have 4v4 bots play, right? And so you have 4v4 bots play that map, you know,
Hmm.
1,000 times with those spawn locations, and you keep doing that until you get an even result. And I bet that these companies are already doing that or
Oh,
stuff like that.
internally for sure. I totally believe
Yeah,
that.
exactly. Right. Or like someone needs to make a balance change, right? And so, like, yeah, ultimately you're going to like look at real live data, right? Like, you're going to look at the live data of the game and see that, like, oh, character A has too high of a win rate or something like that. And you're going to adjust on that, right? But, like, especially for a starting point, if you could basically just say, like, okay, go to a 4v4, go to a 1v1 of these characters and just keep tweaking the values of these abilities they have, right? Like change it from 10% damage to 9% damage or something like that, right? Like, which that's not even ML at that point. That's literally just like we have the cloud and we can run, these workloads like, thousands at a
Also, I think
time,
that
right?
scenario is different than how you'd use it for AI, just because when you're doing balancing and stuff, you're starting from a very clearly defined point, and running sims,
Yes.
And then it's like, all right, we will now manually pick another point to sim and compare the results. Whereas to AI generate spawn points, it's like, even if the AI has a rough idea of where to start, that's so many different variations of spawn point location. It's just that it's scales of magnitude that's going to be the problem. And I really struggle to see a world where that can like scale to customers, like your average person having access to that tool.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah. Also, because again, it's very expensive. Right? Like
super
it's very expensive to run these things. But I still think they're related though, Packy, right? Because you're talking about like, with balance,
definitely.
you have a clear thing you're trying to achieve, right? And that's, I mean, at a very dumb level, that's how ML works. It's you say, this is the target. This is good behavior. This is bad behavior. Okay, to be fair, there's lots of ML. The traditional is like reinforcement learning, right? And it's literally good behavior, bad behavior, and you run it, a million times, and it is responsible for basically essentially like you have some giant graph, and this graph has all these values, and it just tries to tweak all these values to optimize good behavior and minimize bad behavior, right? Which is literally balance changes, right? Like, and so, I think there is some overlap there, but I do agree that they are different, right? But they're different but related. Different but same.
Absolutely. It's just it's kind of building off of what you're getting at with there's a lot of cool and exciting modern stuff about AI, but I think the conversation very, very quickly gets out of hand, like with what people's expectations are and how quickly we're going to get there. And it's kind of like I think it just highlights the difference of like where we use it now and it's great, and then extrapolating that to just even a slightly more complex use case. All of a sudden, you explode the complexity and the difficulty of the task.
And that's why I feel like. Go ahead, James.
I was just going to make a dumb comparison. It's like modern day like alchemy. You just say, oh, here's the base laws, but then eventually you're like, it can do all these things, and maybe one day it will. I mean, we literally can turn lead into gold if we really want to. It's just extremely energy intensive, and it's stupid. But,
But we'll try. And it's in keeping
with that. Just a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah. Move a couple of protons, neutrons around. Boom.
Sugar, spice, everything nice. Like how much sugar, how much spice, how much everything nice, and then how much chemical X.
You just got to watch the episodes and just time it out and look at the size of the flasks. Just do the math. I don't know.
Completely unrelated.
Super long term, I think we will get to a point where all entertainment is machine learning driven in some way, or at least like the floor of all entertainment is. Like if you could get to a point
like that,
where...
The floor. Yes, the floor.
I was going to say, if you could get to a point where it literally is as easy as the intent-based, where you just say, like, I want to watch a movie. I don't really know what I want to watch. I want to watch a movie that is like Die Hard, but also has fantasy elements, and then you wait 30 minutes, and then it generates it for you. And it may not be good, but it's entertaining.
I know, but I could totally see that, right?
I mean, like all the pieces are there. Like, it just has to actually do the hard work of doing it, but the pieces are there.
And I appreciate that you said wait 30 minutes because it's more likely wait 3 hours.
Well, I know, but even for like the I've used the DALL-E like mini machine learning AI thing like through the website that doesn't require like you to wait in a queue. Like I think Midjourney is supposed to be pretty powerful, but you actually have to like rent time with it or something. I don't know. I haven't done Midjourney yet. But the DALL-E mini one...
This goes back to it's very expensive.
That's what I'm saying. The DALL-E mini one, which is like super small scale and it's all just through the browser... I've used that for like my world building stuff. I'll put in a prompt that matches what I want as like an image. Because like I don't plan on selling anything that I write. And so like the commercial implications of stealing other people's work for the AI version of it doesn't actually matter. But like it still takes sometimes, 5 to 10 minutes. And that's a tiny, tiny little small scale thing for it to generate the, 4 images that it's putting together.
Yeah. No, and actually you mentioned something very interesting there too. Commercial you said like, oh, I have no intention of selling this or whatever, so commercial. Anyways, I like I mentioned, I was trying to use AI generated art to get our podcast logo with our super cool name Jetpack Swords, which by the way, great name, love it, super proud of us for that one. Anyways, so I was typing in like space marine wearing jetpack holding blade of light, some shit like that, whatever, right? And the results were obviously terrible.
Of course.
And our logo is not going to be coming from those AI generated art pieces. But anyways, before I started doing this, I was like, can I even do this? Right? Like, we're not making money on this podcast, right? But like, if we were to make money on this podcast at some point in the time, like, would I even be allowed to use that thing? And so apparently, no one knows is the real answer, right? But theoretically, it's a mix of like, what trained the AI, right? Like, which artists' work were used to train the AI? Do they have some claim to it, right? Does the person who trained the model themselves, right? Like, not the source material, but the person who basically fed it the source material, right? Like the developers working on it, do they have some claim to it? And then what about you? Like, you gave it the input after all, right? Like, it was your idea to create that art piece, right? And so, like, what claim do you have to it? And then what's really interesting is you can get super like science fiction-y, right? And basically say that, well, copyright is a human right, and an AI is not a human, and therefore anything the AI produces is not copyrightable, which means that no one has the rights to it. And like that, and that was actually one of the leading things was like,
But I mean, the AI is just a
theoretically,
tool. The AI, you can copyright things that you own a tool that tool made.
I know, and that's why it's like really that's why it's how science fictiony do you want to get?
I
Do you
mean,
want to really say that like that thing is actually an artificial intelligence
so you
and
could
it's
get to
doing the
that
thing, or
point, and
yeah,
you could
is
say
it a
that
tool?
it itself has the rights to its own content, even though it's not actually, sapient. I mean, there was that art show like controversy that just happened a week or two ago, where the dude or
Yep.
the person, I don't know what gender they were, but the person made, they developed a piece using machine learning like art generating tools, and they submitted it, and I'm pretty sure they won, and everybody was like, they're not
Yeah.
allowed to win because they didn't actually make this piece of work. Like, yeah, they may have done the prompt, but it's based on real pieces of art that it drew from to make that. So
Mm-hmm.
Which I also
it's already
suspect that
starting.
is discounting the amount of work the guy put into making that.
Probably.
Right? Like, I suspect it
Probably.
took not only thousands of attempts, but also like thousands of attempts. And then you find the one that's good. And then you basically say, okay, build off this one and then change these things about it, right? Like, it was probably a very iterative process that the guy spent a lot of time and work on actually getting, which, by the way, that piece is beautiful. Like, I've seen it. It looks.
You could probably argue, I mean, like when you look at somebody, if they make a mixed media piece of art that is using, I mean, you all have seen the multitude of dumb art in museums that is famous for whatever reason, and it'll be like a plastic chair with paint on it or something. And it's like, did they make that piece? Because they didn't make the chair. Or if you look at like collage art and you combine a bunch of random shit from like other works, like if you were like doing newspaper clippings, for example, to make a mosaic, like you didn't do the actual work to make those individual pieces, but you did make the whole. So where does the argument actually like begin and end? How far do you want to take it? It's tough.
I think
I
the
agree that it's
interesting
just a tool personally. Like it is just a tool.
No, yeah, that's
it's just
my
a super
impression
complex
as well.
tool.
It's a tool, and so I feel like it's probably ultimately going to be up to those people, right? Like, are they licensing out the tool and therefore what you create with it is yours, or are they letting it they use it for free and therefore But ultimately,
So I
think
we're asking the wrong question here because I don't think that's how it's going to be decided. It's more going to be how do the legal teams of the companies that make this AI, how best are they able to get the maximum amount of revenue share that they possibly can extract from these?
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing is like no one knows what the right answer is because no one's tested it. And you're right. It's going to be these legal teams.
First
from
people
these
who test are going to get hosed. They're going to get a massive chunk taken out of their percentage of
it's like
of the
safety
revenue.
rules, right? Like you don't make safety rules for things that haven't happened yet. Usually, like it's all written in blood from somebody taking the fall for it.
So that'll be so interesting.
I also have another personal anecdotal example too. There is a world building writing like compilations website that I've used where it's like basically to make like an easy to put together wiki style thing. It's called World Anvil, and it's like a really cool tool. But if I remember correctly, I haven't used it in like a year, but unless I remember correctly, unless you pay into their higher tier of like subscription, you do not own anything you put on their website. Which, if you want to be a actual like commercially viable person, that could fuck you, because then they'd just be like, well, you don't own this, so you can't do it. So like I have a little bit on there just because, again, I have zero expectations of ever making anything out of my personal creative hobby, but like I did think about it. I was like, what if something I do put down actually eventually become something. Like, they would claim it. It's theirs. I think I might be talking on my ass, but I think Incarnate, which is a pretty common map making tool that a lot of like, new starting out world builders or just people who want to make maps for like D&D campaigns or whatever, I think they technically own the rights to the maps also. I might be making that up. They might not be as controlling as
I wouldn't be
World
surprised,
Anvil.
especially if the target for it is hobbyist, right? Like
Yeah.
if it really is like you said, use this to make your D&D map for your campaign, right? And then, it's free for you to use that. But yeah, no, if you want to actually sell that, then woohoo!
Say Incarnate specifically also, like, they provide assets for their maps. It's not just like MS Paint where it's a blank canvas. Like, it can be that, but they also have like a little tiny mountain asset that you can use to represent mountains on your map. And like, they made all of that art. So like, it's theirs. If the pieces of your map are all theirs, then like, it makes sense. Like I said, I don't know if they've made that claim, but I'm pretty sure World Anvil did for any of like the lower tier subscriptions.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the take on the map making makes a lot of sense to me. It's really just protecting against people like trying to leverage their service to get cheap assets for something they always intended for commercial sale. Mm-hmm. Whereas, their main intention is just to provide it to hobbyists.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we covered AI in gaming. A lot of potential. Very interesting. I think the stuff I would take away from this is it's coming, maybe not super soon, because it is still kind of expensive. And I think, James, like you said, I'm going to go back to your point of this will enable things for other developers, basically give them tools that maybe they didn't have the budget for. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really cool. Mm-hmm. And then maybe someday we'll even see that for, like I said, something like Forge Maps or something like that, where pure blown end user, not even developer, can do something like that. Who knows? I think that'd be really cool. So I'm going to segue us. The last couple weeks, not actually the last couple weeks, there have been a couple times where, like we do this thing where we always talk about something that's, like happened semi recently, which has, a couple benefits. A, it's relevant, it's topical. And B, it gives us something to talk about, and we don't blow through our list of topics right away. So, which is good. There's a reason we do it. So one of the things that's been on my list of topics is traditions. And I've been wanting to bring it up for a while because, we've talked about, we did the Ubisoft event, and not just the Ubisoft event, the Ubisoft event, the Stony State of Play, and the Nintendo Direct, right? We talked about that one week. And I wanted to talk about this then, actually, maybe even before that. So do you guys have any like gaming traditions, like of any kind or sort? Like whether it be something old that you don't do anymore, something new, or something blue, that just some tradition you have, whether it be playing a game or something in the industry or, whatever. Go.
I have some like older ones that I haven't done recently, but like have done obviously in the past and definitely helped shaped like some of the most important relationships I have in my life. I'm sure we all grew up with usually like one or two people that were our quote unquote best friends, right? And I still definitely subscribe to that model of relationships, as immature as some people might see it as. I think that's a stupid label. But like me and my really good friend Jacob, who you both know, when we were kids, we would obviously do like sleepovers, go over and spend, the night over at somebody else's house, right? And we would do that honestly like almost every weekend, every other weekend. We spent a lot of time together, like at each other's houses. And we would always do our biggest, probably most consistent thing all the way up definitely through Reach, because I remember Reach specifically. But like on the launch periods, either like the launch night or weekends or whatever, we would, go to one of the other one's houses, and we would stay up literally all night playing through the co-op campaign for every Halo game. Reach is the one I remember specifically because Reach is extremely special to me as like a game and just like a story and a product. But I remember we did that.
It literally led to our podcast.
That's very
true. If Reach didn't exist, Jetpack Swords would not exist, and you would not be sitting here talking into your microphone to Packy and I and no one else listening.
No,
we still wouldn't have a name. We'd still be arguing about it.
We did that.
We literally probably wouldn't even be here though.
Oh,
right?
no, probably.
Because if it wasn't for that formative experience, right? Like that was a very formative experience in our lives. That's why, it is. Anyway, sorry. I'm totally derailing you, James.
No, you're fine.
Continue.
But
Separately from Reach being a great game, tell me about this tradition of a game launch and you'd go over to Jacob's house.
I mean, we would just either he'd come to my house because we had more of the consoles for like the launches at least. Because my family was definitely we buy one game console once a year as the family gift for me and my brothers, because I have 3 brothers that at the time all lived in the same house, so it was all 4 of us. But like for Reach, he came over and we stayed up literally that entire night into the morning. And Reach especially was funny because my youngest brother, who is now a little over 16, and actually works at Sky Zone with me. He I don't remember what year Reach came out. Whatever year Reach came out,
Nepotism.
that's how old he was.
Nepotism. Sorry.
Hey, he did multiple interviews with people who were not me. I didn't interview him to hire him, so other people hired him.
Okay.
It's also Sky Zone. It doesn't fucking matter. But however old he was when Reach came out, I couldn't tell you how long ago that was, but he literally, like, we were still playing downstairs in, like, the family room on, like, our big, main family TV. And my mom came down the next morning and she was like, wow, you guys are still up? And I was like, yeah, I mean, you know us. And my brother at the time, who again was probably like 5, 6, I don't even know. We got him on because we wanted to play multiplayer, but we didn't want to play just the 2 of us. So we played a 3-person split screen, like, competitive, multiplayer game with the 3 of us, me, Jacob, and my like 6-year-old brother. It was really stupid, and he had a blast. Like Ethan, my brother, still like talks about, he's still super into gaming, obviously, because me and his other brothers all were, and he, knew Jacob from a long time, and we still every once in a while play stuff. Beyond that, obviously the Gears of War games we did the same thing with. We would, do the co-op campaigns together. And then the only other thing I could think of, which it's been a while since I've done, being an adult with a job and everything, but it was staying up for midnight releases, even digital ones, like not just physical ones where you go to like GameStop or whatever, but specifically like No Man's Sky. Me and like 5 of our friends, me, Jacob, and some other people, we stayed up that night, had it pre-installed, played it, and like obviously No Man's Sky is in a way better place now than it was then, but like I still really enjoyed the game when it first came out. Like I played probably like 6 hours that night of just like being like, holy shit, we're exploring this crazy universe, and like, yeah, it's not exactly what they promised, but like it's more than I expected personally, like honestly. And now obviously it's in a great spot. But like No Man's Sky we did that with. I mean a ton of games I've done that with, and I can't remember the last physical release I went to. I think it was Red Dead 2 actually. I think Jacob and I together went to a GameStop and waited in line and got Red Dead 2 when it came out. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It was something fairly recently-ish. But yeah, like just midnight releases and co-op campaigns for sure for me.
I love those stories. I feel like obviously so many of the people listening can relate to those, game releases, whether it be the midnight release or the weekend after. Or like, I'm sure so many people have some tradition, whether it be going over to their friend's house and having a sleepover, or just maybe they're an adult now and they just blocked out their entire weekend, bought like 5 Red Bulls and a giant bag of Doritos.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean, Jake and them are doing that for a while right now for Wrath. They took some time off for the Wrath, because I think the actual real launch yesterday or the day before. You all would know better than me.
It's a few days ago.
We got an email about it the other day.
Because I think there was some like pre-launch stuff they were doing like last week, but they stayed up. I know they were up that night late.
So I mean I think the last 3 or 4 WoW launches I've definitely taken vacation days. And when the game, and I've done that for some other games too. Ever since I've been an adult, right? Like if there was a game I was really, really excited for, I would absolutely, take a vacation day and play it. And WoW has been the most consistent of those because I'm an addict. And, then you
that is the best way to put it. I do, I've obviously been there with you, and it is not necessarily because of the expectation it will be good. It is more like I have to. It's really, I don't consider it a tradition. It's just, it's a second job.
The first 2 weeks of every WoW expansion is always so much fun. Every single time, right? And so then like, I could extrapolate this WoW tradition to be, expansion launches, I take a few days off work and I play the hell out of it. I play the hell out of it for 3 months. I get ahead of the curve, and then I stop playing until the next expansion. that's my WoW tradition.
I think that's
Which
why I think
you bet
negatively
your
launches.
ass I'm gonna do the same with Dragonflight.
Oh my god, yeah. When I need to fix
You were
my
saying,
PC
Packy.
before it happens. I mean, I'm about to criticize it and then think about how I need to get my PC together for that launch because I will almost assuredly. It'll be hard
I
this year because
know.
it's launching like right before Thanksgiving, so I'm not sure I and people will be taking as much time off as we normally do. I mean, yeah, I did the exact same thing. It's that's why I always think of WoW as. I always like to make fun of it because it starts out and it is always so unbelievably good, but by the end of my time with it, I just despise it so much. It's never taken in healthy doses. It's always absolutely absurd.
Yeah, it's big old chunks for sure.
Yeah.
It's I totally feel that.
I think I've got some stuff. I don't really think of them as traditions, but similar practices around certain games or game launches and stuff like that. But I would be remiss if I did not talk about the Ganon tank because that's probably the closest thing to a tradition
Yes,
that I
perfect.
have.
Enthrall us.
So we have
This
a
episode's going to be
story
marked as
tradition.
explicit.
Yeah, warning, if you are not 21 or over, please do not partake in this particular tradition, though ours may or may not have started before the age of 21. So, in the game of Super Smash Bros., since the 3rd edition Brawl, there's been a character called Ganondorf. And Ganondorf is a very, very fun character to play. The villain from the Zelda games, people don't know. And yeah, it's been around. So if he was in Brawl, that means he came out in like 2008 or 2000, probably 2007 or 8. So been in the game for a long time. And all of us have been playing that game. Smash is probably of at least my group of friends, easily the most popular game series. What's up?
It was 08. It was January 31st, 2008.
Oh, fucking nailed it. There's one thing I know, and it's Smash. Because we've been playing it for forever. All of our friends have been playing it, and especially there was an affinity for Ganondorf. Everybody has a couple. Most people it's Captain Falcon, who we also really love, but we adore Ganondorf. And all of us are very good at it in him in all of the games. And it started with a skin called the Old-Manondorf skin, which is when he is blue and has white hair. And it's just notable because it's the most different looking of the skins. And so we all refer to ourselves as the Old-Manondorf when you're using it. But only one person can use the skin at a time. So it turned into a competition between Ganondorfs to have that skin. And so we've been doing that for forever. I mean, over a decade, playing for the right to use the skin. Was whoever the last winner of the Ganondorf games was with the owner of the skin in the game. And so that evolved over time, particularly when we hit college. I can't remember when. It might have actually been after college. The drinking component, which then it went from an unstructured, it could be free-for-all, it could be 1v1, you just played for the skin. It was all good fun. But we added stakes to it in college where it became about drinking with each match, and it was always 1v1. And we play a best of 3, so first to 2 wins. And so we'd play that out, and every time you lost an individual match, or you even challenged for the skin, you would take a drink. Actually, I think the challenge shots came later. Ultimately, though, the drinking rules are if you lose, you were taking about 3 shots in one attempt for the skin. And later, when we graduated, I can't remember when, it was like 4 or 5 years ago, we now have a Ganondorf tank in the mix. It's a physical shirt that people now wear and we play for. And it's a group of
to clarify too, it's weighted in favor of the owner of the tank, right? Because so to challenge, you have to take the drink, right?
Oh yeah.
And then the loser of the thing has to take a drink, right? So the current holder at worst only has to do 2 shots or 2 drinks, right? Whereas to challenge, you have to do 3, right? Or no, you at worst end up doing 3, right? So it's literally weighted in favor of the person who already has it.
It doesn't hit you instantly, so early on it doesn't really matter. But yeah, if never in any kind of competition like this have I noticed more that is completely fair and even by all metrics because of the drinking. People go on. I mean, I had this summer where you would just win and you would start winning and you would never stop. You really would just absolutely steamroll people. And so the most I won was something it was the night, I still have the clip of Doug. He challenged me 5 times, which you can do the math on how much drinking that is, and lost every time.
Oh
And
my
I still have
god.
the clip of the last 30. The last game
He
he
didn't
didn't.
even win any of the best of threes, right? Because so it's a best of three, right? So you have to win twice in a row. He
Yeah,
didn't win any in the middle games, none.
he won some individual games, but he never won a challenge. I think he won like one or two
Yeah,
individual
okay.
games.
Man.
But I mean, pretty it was really funny. Everyone, it was kind of a circle of different people beating
It
people.
was really funny watching your friend succumb to alcohol poisoning, is what you're
Actually,
saying.
it was that instance put into for a while like hard limits where you were only allowed to challenge 3 times, and so that went away.
Oh my
But
god.
it's no longer like a really hard enforced limit. We no longer talk about it. Like I would bring it up specifically to Doug because again, it was kind of in a challenge. There's about 4 of us who can seriously compete for it because we've all played. I mean, across all the different games, I've probably played 100 hours of Ganondorf alone, like across the different Smash games. That's probably an underestimate. It's probably 100 hours of Ganondorf in Ultimate. Like it's just we've played a disgusting amount of him, so people can't break in and win
Probably
anymore.
more. It's probably more.
That's probably about 100 because we've got like
And
600 total
actually,
in the game.
okay. So what I find is interesting is I've been there, I've partaken in a few challenges. I've never been the owner of the tank. I've never had the tank, right? But I would
No one
be,
but the 4 of us have ever owned it.
I would be an ancillary support character, right? Like there was one time I remember Steven had the
Persians.
tank, right? And so
They literally refer to it. They just throw people who have no shot of winning, hoping they take a game, and it's called the Persians in reference to 300, with the Spartans and the tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of Persians just being
that was literally
bodies
me.
thrown at the wall, just trying
Yeah,
to
that
make
was
just a
literally me.
little bit of headway.
Yeah, there's one time I think Steven had the tank and you and Doug were trying to win it from him, or maybe you weren't even there. Doug and someone else was trying to win it from him, and he was on a roll, right? And just couldn't do it. And so it's like, screw it. It's early in the night, I'll take a crack at this, right? And I was so proud. I won one of the 3, right? Like,
That's huge.
And I was like, I did it, guys. I contributed. He had to take one more drink because of me. I buttered him up for you guys later.
That's huge.
It's like I don't actually think it's like that. I don't know. To be fair, it's also because Ganondorf is super kind of gimpy, right? Like, or gimmicky, right? So you can get some really cheesy kills, like
There's a reason we play Ganondorf. He's not like a typical Smash character. He pretty much you hit each other about 3 or 4 times, and the other person dies. Like it's very, very fast. It's very like he's the dumbest. Like playing different characters, particularly that Smash. Like there's a lot of variation to the strategy. They've really added a bunch of mechanics. Ganondorf benefited from none of that. He just runs in and smacks them. Like they just smack each other around. They're very, very quick games. It's why like the clip I have of Doug. It's a 26-second game. It's the fastest game I've ever played of Smash ever. And I take 3 different stocks in it. Again, he's piss drunk. He cannot play anymore. But it's just how Ganon is. But yeah, super duper fun tradition. Easily like that's just the one for me.
When I asked, I literally I wasn't even thinking of that. Like I said, I'm well aware of this tradition. I've taken part of this tradition, and that didn't even cross my mind. And that's so much better than literally anything I could think of. Like, no offense, James, but like Packy just blew you out of the water. Right?
That's fine. Mine's wholesome, so it's whatever.
So they're all equally good. I think just the Smash one is a little more unique, right? Like,
yeah,
it is unique. Yeah. Well, no, so, and then here's the thing I love about it, which you didn't really touch on. So there's actually 2 things I love about it. So one, it has expanded, right? Like, didn't you guys expand to Mario Kart?
We added new competitions. It was really just kind of copying what makes
not really to the same level, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was really we never took it to the same level. The idea around Mario Kart, we had a couple others we were going to do this with at some point. The Ganon-offs really, it's always been a thing, what I described. It makes it seem like it really turned into something new when we added the physical shirt into the mix. Like we really started to care and play very, very hard,
cup, right?
challenge a lot. Yeah, and so we made this very elaborate Mario Kart trophy with the same idea. And also part of what kept it cool and what makes this competition cool is it's national. Like only a couple of us actually live in the same town. We compete for it when we all come together. So it's become something, it's a unifying thing. We talk about meeting up specifically to challenge for the shirt all the time. So we wanted the Mario Kart trophy to become the same thing. And funnily enough, it went to someone who like never came to an event again. And so we've just never gotten it back.
That's funny.
Yeah, but no, that was exactly the other thing I was going to say I loved about it is not just how it expanded, but how it is literally a thing that, is crossing state borders, and like it has become not necessarily the center, but at least always an event, always a key component of, big group meetups, among our friend group, right? And I love that. And it's like, you'll be shamed. Like if you're the owner of the shirt and you're traveling and you don't bring the tank, you will be shamed for not
It's
bringing
actually
the
never
tank.
happened because of that. Because of the fear of the retribution, I've never been at one of these events
Exactly.
with the other people who did bring the shirt.
Even
if we don't play
it would
for
be
it.
so bad. Yeah. And so
I'll say the biggest thing is
I-
how pervasive it is throughout people who don't compete. Because again, we go to these events, there'll be like 12 of us, right? Like all people who've known each other for a long time. And again, there's really only 4 who
people
care about
sitting in
and
the corner
compete
playing
for this
Smash.
shirt. But other people watch. Other people, like,
Yeah.
it draws
Yeah.
a crowd and it becomes the focal point of that room. And often that room is the biggest one. And that's why I so distinctly remember when I went on a really good winning streak over a summer where we did a lot of travel and I was just winning them a lot. So I got like borderline booed like gatherings of our closest friends by people who don't play Smash and don't like care that much. And they were just booed because everybody gets really into it. And like everyone wants the king to lose. It's all against the king. It's just about like the king loves having the tank and everybody else wants you to lose.
Well, because then the other thing that like you didn't explicitly mention, right, is because there have been times where someone came in with the tank, they lost it, and literally either that night or the next night of whatever, right, like they would win it back, right? So like they'd maybe not have it for like a day, but then by the end of the night they'd have it back again.
Steven's
Like I've
the
got
friggin'
those.
king of that. Kick Steven's ass all weekend for a full 3 days, and then Sunday comes around in the morning, he challenges 2 times, wins it, and just walks onto the plane. Just like, God damn you.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's not like a once the king loses the tank, it's done. No. The king's gonna get his tank back,
It's
right?
never
Like
over.
he's gonna try so
That's why we
hard.
need limits. People literally until they collapse will just go for this thing. Really, we do have some semblance of like not letting people get bored. We've talked about that before, like because it draws so much attention. 4 people of your 12 are going off to a corner to play Smash. It's like, hey, we should probably, go out and do things in Colorado where we've never been before. Oh man, where was another place where it was bad? Not really Cincinnati, but a couple other places. We've had
like
it.
cabin trips or whatever. It's like you could be doing other things, or I wonder. I'm sure that they played for it in Vegas, right? Like the
100%.
Actually, you were in Vegas, right?
That's another one. Yeah, that's another one where we're like, hey, let's go gamble maybe. That seems like a cool idea in Vegas.
I gotta say, I love it. I don't even want to share mine. It's just like, I mean, I can't not, so I'm going to. But like mine is just so sad. It's just mine is literally depressing. It's following.
You're selling this well. You're selling it really well.
Yeah. No, so I mean, it's just a small thing, right? Like, and that's kind of what I was asking about. Is like it could be a really big tradition like that, right? Like what you're talking about, Packy, or like a very long-standing one, like you mentioned, James, of like midnight releases, right? Like lots of people can relate to either midnight releases or just like a new game coming out at all, right? And so like it could be anywhere, like big, medium, small. And so like one really small tradition I have is whenever there is a gaming event, and it maybe used to just be when there was an Xbox event, because as we've talked about, that's my system of choice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this tradition has developed where I get Costco pizza. It's not just pizza. It can't be any old pizza. It has to be Costco pizza. And so like E3 will come, it'll be E3, and the Xbox game showcase will happen or whatever, and like we'll go to Costco pizza, we'll pick up an entire pizza, we'll bring it back, and I'll just sit there eating Costco pizza and watching it, and I just it's so small, it's so silly, but honestly I love it, and it is literally a tradition at this point. Like it's been many years of like, if I am watching a gaming event live, like if it's a recording, it's not as likely I'll do it, right? But like if I'm watching it live, I am almost assuredly eating Costco pizza while I do it. And so, James, when I text you in the middle of summer, you can damn well
E3.
bet that my fingers are greasy from Costco pizza.
Anything to complete the image and the ambience, I appreciate.
And so honestly, like that's one that like, that's, I mean, obviously like I can share with both of what you related, not to the same extent, Packy, because I've never had the tank, but I've participated in the challenge nonetheless. And,
No
and
others
James,
ever
obviously,
shall.
like you know what? I have a Switch. I have Smash Bros. Do not make me play Old-Manondorf over and over again.
Oh, please.
I
welcome the grind. We need a new challenger to keep it fresh.
And oh god, no! I don't go to as many of those events anymore as I used to. Anyways, is the other thing. So, and then obviously, yeah, no, I've done the like midnight releases for WoW or other games, and like particular Halo in particular, James. I've definitely done that exact thing for Halo, right? Like I've stayed up for. The most recent one was probably Halo 5, obviously, right? Like I think I probably stayed up the night Halo 5 came
definitely
out.
did not do Halo. Reach was the
Did you
last one I cared about.
Did you stay up for Infinite? Or did
I don't
Infinite kind of just dropped, right? Like
Yeah,
it
just
all of a sudden dropped.
It did. It dropped early. They like did an event and they were like, "Hey, by the way, the multiplayer is live now, or it's live tomorrow, or something like that." Yeah, because it was a early access beta for a month or whatever. So no, like I didn't do anything for that. But no, I don't. I mean, I'm sure I have others, but like nothing super sticks out to me. That being said, I don't know. I love it. I just think it's super fun to talk about and like. Because it's whether it's stuff everyone can relate to or stuff that's like super random that Packy gets belligerently drunk with friends.
Nah, I don't get belligerently drunk. I just win.
I don't know. I just love it. It makes me happy. It's one of those things that it's like how what impact, right, do video games have on our lives? How that's like a tradition. It's a regular recurring impact or whatever. And so
for sure.
I think it's just a fun thing to talk about, and who knows, like, maybe a year from now when we do our 59th episode, if I can do math correctly, maybe I'll ask it again and see if anything new has come up in the past year. You never know, right? Like things change.
A new tradition. That's a real thing. It's just weird to me to think of conceptually when you like doing something once over this next year and be like, "Yep, that's the one." That one forever.
Well, maybe it's you did it for the second time, and then so
Yeah.
Maybe last time you got Costco pizza, and you'll get Costco pizza again because you'll understand that Costco pizza is love and Costco pizza is life.
I haven't gotten Costco pizza once since we worked together. I got it a lot when we did.
It's so good. It's such a good deal. It's the best pizza place.
It is an excellent
best value pizza place.
I saw people bragging on Costco food deals so recently again. People are so incredible, like just so appreciate that Costco does that.
But I mean, there was the whole thing, like they did the earnings call or something, and they were like, yeah, we don't plan on raising the price of either the membership or the hot dog combo, right?
That was it.
For those who don't know, the hot dog combo, it's, I think it's a quarter-pound hot dog.
It's a big hot dog.
And a drink for $1.50. And it's been that way for a very long time, and hopefully it will continue to stay that way for a very long time. So I love it. It's great. That being said, I think I'm gonna keep us short this week, so I have a little bit less to edit, and also so I have a little more time to go get better as Rick in Multiverses, or maybe play Grounded.
Full release is out.
It is. Dude, I was thinking of when I'm going to start playing, because I want to start playing with other people, but at the same time, I'm never like going to be on for a long block like I want when other people are on. I think
it's always tough.
I say go for it, Greg, because I'm just going to go for it like either tomorrow or at some point this weekend, like just whenever I have the gamer time, I'm going to sit down and begin the grind, because I assume whenever you start, you're just going to want to plow forward.
Do you have the gamer time right now, one or both of you?
Maybe James does. I do not.
I might tomorrow, but not tonight.
Bollocks. Well,
it's grandpa
maybe it'll
time.
just be this weekend then. Maybe we'll just plow through it this weekend, Packy. I know, James, your schedule's a little weirder, so
yeah, this is this coming weekend is the start of fall break, so Skyzone's about to get lit. It's the surrounding counties at the same time too, so it's gonna be great.
Ooh.
Yeah, next week's gonna blow. Bizarre. How do you all feel? We can do this on air or whatever. About, doesn't have to be every week, but I like the idea of doing a like, what are you playing or what are you into currently?
Absolutely.
Like, I know I play enough that like week to week it is different usually. because my job is relatively easy and doesn't take a ton of my time outside of like actually being there. So, but I don't know if you guys do a lot like different week to week, but I definitely do. So
It'll be in bursts.
Right.
Like recently, I've been trying a lot of games. Like I have had interesting answers over the past, I'd say 3 weeks, but I've also had like multi-month stretches where it's like nothing, or this one game that's been the same the whole
I mean,
time. Like for a
that's
long
fair,
time, it's just
that's fair.
multiverses.
I did. I mean, yeah, no, I think this would be excellent, right? Like, just briefly, right? Like one of the things I'd actually picked up, and actually I picked it up because we talked about it on the podcast. One of the very early ones was like, I started playing some Pokemon Unite again, and like, that game's solid. Like it's solid.
I'll give a shout out to James. You mentioned the Astroneer update, and that made me try it again.
Yeah, it's just more Astroneer. It's good.
It's good. I liked it. It's what made me realize I need to get my computer updated though, because it crashed, and I was like, "Oh, Astroneer's not that hard."
No,
we need to be making some changes here.
Yeah, you better be ready for Dragonflight.
That's what you got to remind me, because I don't play my PC ever.
This week in particular, as of yesterday, I finally set my Switch up again. It had been just gathering dust for like 2 years, because as I've said before, I love the Switch, but I never play it. I tried playing Breath of the Wild. I finally bought it, having played it a little like around its launch on like other people's Switches, but I never owned it. So I finally bought it, tried playing on the Joy-Cons, hated it on the Joy-Cons, and I got a Pro controller against my better financial judgment, same day delivered by GameStop while I was at work yesterday, so I could come home and have it. And I've played maybe like 5 hours between last night and this morning, and so much better with it. Feels like a real game that like I can play with the Pro controller. Oh my god!
They should ship a Pro controller with the Switch.
Honestly, like if they just bumped the price, the Joy-Cons are good for like party games, but for like anything that's not just a like, no offense to anybody, but like a bullshit game, the Pro controller is so much nicer. Like
the Pro controller is really great for sure. And I would say, and actually, like, I'd throw out a note, right? Like, I've been looking a lot at the Steam Deck recently. I'm not going to get a Steam Deck because
Jacob's
I don't play my own
speaking
computer.
very highly of it. He loves it.
Everyone speaks very highly of it because it's a great.
It runs Doom Eternal at Ultra.
That's amazing.
Really?
Yeah, he's been playing it.
It's a great machine.
God. It's wild when it can run well.
I'm curious, actually, do you know, is Jacob running it on SteamOS or did he flash Windows onto it?
I don't think he flashed it. I think he's just running it on the native, because I don't know a ton about you all, or at least I know Greg, I know you know more than I do, but isn't the SteamOS, is it the Linux one that's like native to it or whatever?
It is, yeah.
Then yes,
Linux,
that's what he's been using, because that's what he's been talking about.
Which is really good, by the way. Like, the only reason, so if I got one, I would flash Windows onto it, and the reason I would do that is because Game Pass.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
like PC Game Pass, right? Like, I would like to be able to play all of those games directly on the like really nice hardware. But so the reason I was looking at it, and again, not going to get it because I don't play my Switch, I don't play my computer. The Steam Deck is a combination of my Switch and my computer. I would not play that either, right? But I was playing, I mentioned Pokemon Unite, right?
Yeah.
And that game plays better on my goddamn phone than it does on my Switch. Like,
isn't that it? And it's so weird. Like, what works really well and what, like, Breath of the Wild is, massive and like good looking, and it runs like butter, and then other things run like absolute shit.
Well, so it's a combination of two things. So it's the performance literally is worse. Yes, my phone literally, like, at a performance, like very technical, like graphical fidelity, smoothness level, my phone literally just runs it better. Yeah. Right. But then even beyond that, I was trying to play it handheld. Maybe I should have docked it and played with my Pro controller, right? But like, the Switch is the most uncomfortable piece of shit on the fucking planet. It is. Maybe I just have it's that I have big hands. I'm a pretty big guy. I have big hands.
My hands aren't that big, and I can't use the Joy-Cons. They're so uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're just exceptionally uncomfortable. Whereas, like, I look at the Steam Deck, and that looks a little more ergonomic to me. I mean, it's notably bigger for one.
I mean, you all know how big Jacob is. You have both seen him in person. He's the same size, and he has no issues with the Steam Deck. So just to give you an idea.
Oh, that's nice.
And so, like, that's why I was looking at it, because I think the Switch is a great device. I think I absolutely cannot play it handheld because my hands are too big, and it is so uncomfortable.
A home console for me.
It's so uncomfortable.
I think it's fine with certain games. It's funny.
What?
Well, I also played a Switch game this week.
Yeah? What'd you play?
Mine was Bad North, which I think is also a mobile game because I
I
literally
know
played it
of
that
it.
way.
I've not
Like
played it.
it's the first time I've ever, because of, I do think it's just uncomfortable to hold. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's manageable. I played a couple games on it. Like I just played Crown Trick on Switch as well, which is a very,
Mm-hmm.
very good game. But a game where admittedly, like I think where the Joy-Con suffer the most is the sticks suck. Like in
Sticks are
every
not
single
good.
facet, like they're just not, they don't feel good to use. They
Yeah.
break incredibly easily.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
all that said, like Bad North had very similar control issues. And because it had that mobile component and it notes as much, it is the first time that reminded me this Switch is a touchscreen. And I literally took the Joy-Cons off and held it like a tablet and just played it like that.
Hmm.
Very, very good game.
That's
Like
fair.
$6 right now, which is why I picked it up.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Hmm.
Yeah. That
Another
being said,
roguelike
James,
on
I
the
love
list.
that idea. We'll definitely do that. Either, if
Agreed.
not every
Yeah,
week,
it
every other
could
week,
it
even if
could be
it's
just
just like
something to
a
like flesh out like any shorter episodes, or because like obviously if we're doing one of the ones that cuts over into almost 2 hours, we probably don't need to add that. But on one like today where we had a good stopping point, I just it's not a bad idea, and it also keeps like
yeah.
us up to date on what each other's what we're feeling at the current moment. Like I just started Elden Ring again too, like 3 hours ago. I got on the PS5 to play with Jacob, and
Nice.
I literally, so I just want to say I've made it to the last boss in Elden Ring. I have not beaten it. I've beaten the first phase, but not the second. And Packy, as you know, last week I specifically spent that morning trying to beat Sigrun so I could brag about it. I died to the first Elden Ring boss, which is a normal soldier that nobody ever has died to. It's literally a joke boss in the tutorial area, and I died to it. And it wasn't me like pausing the game in a game that you can't pause and like doing something else. I was trying, and I died to him. So it's my life is a spectrum, so it's fine. It's fine.
That's a good way to.
That's such a
God.
From
Everything's
Software
spectrum.
moment. Just everything kills you.
It's just I'm just the worst sometimes at games. I cannot.
I don't think what you said about like people don't lose or die to this boss is probably true, right? Like I remember Matt bought Dark Souls 3 at one point, and he was like, I hate this game because he couldn't beat the equivalent thing in that game of like basically the tutorial boss, right? And even the tutorial boss was so hard, he's like, I can't beat it. I hate this game. Right?
Even in like the original Dark Souls, the tutorial boss is the Asylum Demon, which is like a 3-story tall, like big thing. The Elden Ring first boss is your size, Greg. He is a soldier in a metal helmet with a claymore,
Yeah, it's
and
a
that's
deviation.
it. It's not even like a traditional FromSoft boss where it's like a monster. It's always a monster in every other FromSoft game except for fucking Elden Ring. Well, I guess technically the Scion is the first boss. Sorry, the second boss after the literal first intro that you're supposed to die to, because they always have a almost scripted death in every FromSoft game. Yeah, so
The
There was
Dark
a
Souls
new,
3 tutorial boss is bullshit. It is a great introduction to what that game is going to be.
yeah,
Because it's a like a larger than you, but like fairly normal looking knight that's way harder than anything else that you've led up to that for about half its health, and then you whack it to half health, and then it becomes a big black blob monster that
Yes.
insta kills you.
Yes.
It's just
It's
I
great.
remember I also could not make it past
Isn't
that
there
tutorial boss
a
for a minute.
really new Souls-like game? Actually,
There
sure.
is Steel Rising, which is by the Spiders who made Greedfall and a bunch of other AA games that have been getting progressively less janky as they've made more games, and it's supposed to be really good.
that's good.
I watched Alana Pierce play some of it. It's pretty cool. There's definitely another one that I can't remember the name of, but there's been like 2 or 3 in the last couple weeks. I feel like that are all like AA. Souls
I feel like exactly that AA Souls-like, and I cannot.
Which is a bloated genre
I
for
can't think of
sure.
it. It's definitely getting there. I mean, I was thinking about playing like Mortal Shell on Game Pass because
It's supposed to be decent. I haven't played it, but it's supposed to be decent.
yeah, I think like you said, kind of AA,
Double
like
A.
maybe janky, but yeah.
I'm fine with
So-
there's a place in the sun
I
for
swear there's
double A
another
games.
one. It's really bugging me that I can't think of the name of it, and I'm disappointed that you all can't think of the name of it either.
I
was
can
hoping one
see
of
the
y'all would
cover art. I
remember.
just can't remember the name. Steel Rising's the one that I do remember though for sure, because like I said, it's from the Greedfall devs. It's like basically using Greedfall assets for a Souls-like.
Talk about Salt and
Well, that's kind of
Sanctuary.
interesting.
No, not Salt and Sanctuary. No, not that one.
I'm just listing off Souls likes. Just about to start
Just
reading
gonna go
through
down
a list.
the list.
Yeah. There's
No.
so unbelievably many.
It literally just came out, and I can see the cover art, but I can't remember what it's called.
Well, and there was an article about like the developers were like, this is why it doesn't
Solstice?
have a difficulty setting, and this is
No.
why we think it's okay for it to not have a difficulty setting, and all of this stuff.
You know what's
and, like,
weird is Darksiders 3 was apparently a Souls-like. I never played it, but that's a weird
Oh, yeah, it is.
turn.
It's a big, difference between
Because
the first two.
Darksiders 2 is basically a Zelda game, and it's fantastic. Darksiders 2 is the best of the three by far, but I did not know Darksiders 3 was a Souls-like.
Well, they just kept copying God of War. They truly showed with that move that they were just going to continue to copy God of War as a franchise.
I think
when
my God of War
pivoted.
save that I was doing too, where I was going to 100% it, I think got corrupted too the other day, which makes me really mad.
No,
That sucks.
I haven't tried it since I think it got fucked up, but I think it got fucked up, and I am really disappointed. I had just gotten the last Raven because I was just going through and getting all the rest of the trophies, and
You got all the Ravens?
yeah, dog.
You are a madman.
I got to get all those. I haven't 100%. I have never gotten a platinum trophy or the 100% like Xbox achievements on any game ever. I 100%ed the like story of Red Dead Redemption, and I used to do it on games before achievements and stuff were a thing. But since achievements and trophies have been a thing, I've never done it with all the achievements and all the trophies. I've gotten very close on a lot of games, but I've never done it all the way. And I was gonna make God of War it because they're all relatively. I mean, I did the hardest part, which was kill fucking Sigarans. So like, I could do it easily.
For me, it's always
But
a
I
collectible,
think
so it's just
my,
such a slog in certain
Yeah,
games.
it's always just a
At least the God of
sink.
War one is fun. Like,
Yeah.
hitting the Ravens is legitimately really fun.
Yeah, and like that's the only one that one and the artifacts are like the only collectible ones, and you get most other than the rate like the artifacts you get most of just by playing, which is how I'm pretty sure my save got corrupted. I was going back to get some, and I think the game got like its scripting weird in like the area I was in because it's like one of the intro areas, and I might not have like the game didn't think I was supposed to be there. I don't know. I haven't gone back to check and see if it's actually fucked up or not, but it was definitely fucked up when I was actively playing it right then. So I don't know what happened. Really sucks though, but
That
it's
does
whatever.
suck.
At least I've played it before, so it's not like I'm missing anything I haven't seen already.
Mhm.
And I got Sigrun, so that's all that fucking matters.
Yeah, it's
Gotta
not
get ready
like
for that dual Valkyrie fight in Ragnarok.
Yeah, I cannot imagine how hard that's going to be.
I mean,
I will say,
it's gonna be a nightmare.
there's going to be some. I mean, I'm sure if you want the game to be very, very hard, it's going to be an extremely difficult game.
I just
Wolong Fallen Dynasty. That's what I'm thinking of.
that's not what I'm
Well,
thinking.
I've never even
of.
heard of that
No, that's
game.
not what I'm thinking of. I'm literally looking at a list right now for October and September releases
And
to
actually,
see.
and also this says it's 2023 actually, and
Yeah, that
also
hadn't
I'm
come
not
out
even
yet, I didn't
sure
think.
it's technically a Souls-like. I know it just doesn't have a difficulty setting.
That doesn't make it a
and-
Souls-like.
Yeah, what?
What are
So
you
it's a
talking
game
about?
that's not coming out soon that isn't really a Souls-like, but
Shut up! I don't know
it
what I'm
does have
talking about.
difficulty settings though. Something that
They can have
extremely
difficulty
common with
settings.
games.
Fallen Order is vaguely a
Yeah,
Souls-like
I mean,
in
Fallen
some
Order,
way,
Fallen
and it's got
Order
difficulty
objectively does.
settings.
Remnant from the Ashes
Remnant,
has, I think, at least
yeah,
two difficulty
it
settings.
does. Remnant's
Yeah.
great. I like Remnant a lot.
No, I mean, I do think Wolong Fallen Dynasty is supposed to be a.
That's not.
Hey, Souls-like
No,
game.
the one I'm thinking of literally just came out. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
this
no,
is
you're
a
right.
waste of.
There's like
of
we said,
airtime.
we are so far over. Thank you guys for talking with me today. Thank you for telling me about your traditions. Like I said, it's one of those things that like I really just love talking about. It's why like it's one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast, right? Is to talk about stuff like this, right? Like just kind of like interesting things that like maybe I didn't know about or whatever else, and like are still impactful in our lives. And so yeah, I thank you so much for taking the time today, and thank you so much everyone who listened and whatever else. So adios, and catch us
See
next week
ya.
where we maybe will have a guest star.
I'm gonna try.
Peace.
See ya.
Bye.